she whispered, to understanding what it wants. Isaac stared at her hands. The skin was thin, translucent, veined with dark blue. You're changing. She nodded. I can feel it inside me. Studying. He leaned in. You need to fight it. She looked up and smiled bitterly. I am fighting it. But Isaac wasn't sure. The next night, she didn't sleep. He woke to find her digging in her own forearm with a fishbone, pulling out something black and wet. The scale. It twitched when she dropped it. She crushed it under her boot. I won't be a vessel, she hissed. I'll be a wound. They made their way into the town well before dawn, torching the riverbanks with salt oil, burning the irrigation lines, smashing barrels of preserved fish, killing the eggs before they could spread. Mara chanted the burning glyphs while Isaac poured accelerant. The townspeople screamed, begged, cursed them. They would never know how close they were to hatching. Some still fought. Isaac didn't hesitate anymore. Every town was another tooth in God's jaw, and this one would rot before it bit. The river turned black as the fires reached it. Steam rose, and with it came voices. Thousands of them. Male, female, child, beast, all calling the same name. Mara. She collapsed. Blood poured from her mouth, her eyes, her ears. Isaac rushed to her side, but the book had already flown open on its own. Its pages flapped violently, and the god was there, not in shape, but in presence. The trees bent, the water boiled, the sky turned red, and Isaac saw it. For just a second, a silhouette walking toward them through a world made entirely of mouths. The god didn't want to kill them. He wanted to wear them, like suits, like language. And Mara, she was its favorite mask. When she woke, hours later, she was silent. Isaac sat at her side, crossbow across his lap. You left for a while, he said. She nodded. Where did you go? Into the scream, she whispered. He studied her. You still in there? She looked at him, and her eyes, for a brief second, were his. Tired, human, sad. Yes, she said, but it's getting crowded. Chapter 8, The Sleeper's Bride. They followed the veins of the old god inland. Thick roots of blackened water where no fish swam, no birds nested, and the trees bent away from the river like they knew what slept beneath it. Mara barely ate anymore. She didn't need to. The god was feeding her, on secrets, on echoes, on things that had drowned long ago. Isaac watched her carefully. Every night, she spoke less, but the book spoke more, sometimes aloud, sometimes through the crackling of the fire, sometimes in his dreams. He knew she was losing herself, but it was what she was becoming that terrified him more. They found the vault beneath the roots of a collapsed monastery, one of the original sites where the cult had worshipped the mouth of storms. No one had been there in centuries, but the altar was still lit. The walls were carved with faces, not of saints, of things that had never been human. Each face bore an open mouth, and from each mouth spilled ropes of calcified names, names etched into bone, tethered to the stone like anchors. Mara touched one, screamed. Isaac had to pry her hand away. Her skin had fused to the stone. She slept for hours afterward. While she slept, Isaac explored the vault. He found a second chamber, a crypt, sealed with iron sigils that had rusted into the doorframe. Inside was a shrine made of teeth. At its center, a basin filled with black water, and next to it, a scroll in blood-cured leather. He read it. It was written in 3 languages, only one of them human. It spoke of a choice, a sacrifice. If the god finds flesh that fits, it will wear it forever. If the vessel refuses, it must be emptied. Once sealed in blood and salt, the sleeper dreams again. He didn't tell Mara. He didn't tell her that her body had already been chosen, or that the only way to seal the god back in his sleep was to cut her open and drown her in its name. The next morning, she woke from vision. Her eyes were pitch black, but her voice was clear. It's found me, she said. It knows I know its shape. Isaac helped her up. You said we can hurt it, he whispered. She nodded. But we have to go deeper. They returned to the basin. She looked into the black water. What's it showing you? He asked. She swallowed. Home, she said, but broken, salted, screaming. Then, it wants to wake up, Isaac. Then we don't let it. She looked at him, smiled. Good. That night, He mixed the salt oil and the bloodroot behind her back. While she traced glyphs into her arms with silver wire, he carved the binding runes into the stone around the basin. While she whispered protection spells, he whispered betrayal rites. She thought they were fighting together, but Isaac had already made the choice. He couldn't risk her merging with it. Not Mara, not after everything. Better to end it now. Quietly, cleanly, with love, if possible. When the ritual began, she stood in the basin. The god pulsed through the room. The vault shook. Water seeped from the walls. The shrine of teeth clicked softly, as if chewing air. She held the book in one hand. In the other, the shard of coral bone that had once been Jonah's spine. "Ready?" she asked. Isaac nodded and stepped forward. "Just hold still," he said. She smiled. "Always," she whispered. He drove the blade up on her ribs. Her eyes went wide. She didn't scream, just looked at him, confused, then betrayed, then nothing at all. He laid her body in the basin, spoke the sealing words. Salt burned in the cracks of the stone. The god shrieked, but it didn't rise. It folded inward, back into the dark, back into silence, and the vault grew cold. The book snapped shut, and Mara was gone. Isaac sealed the crypt behind him. He left the scroll, burned the shrine, tossed the key into the river. He walked for miles before stopping. The rain had returned. As it always did, he sat beneath a dead tree and stared at his hands. They were shaking, not with guilt, not with rage, with emptiness. He had saved the world, but something was wrong. The god was gone, but something was still moving inside him. He looked down and saw Mara's glyphs burned into his chest. Chapter 9, The Hollow Throne. Isaac awoke in a field of salt. His mouth was dry, his skin blistered, his veins hummed with heat. The world was silent, too silent. He sat up slowly. Something was different. Not outside, inside. The glyphs had bloomed overnight. His chest and arms were lined with Mara's symbols, no longer burned, but embedded, living. They shifted subtly as he breathed, like ink on water. He tore open his shirt and stared. He could feel them singing, like veins pulsing beneath the skin, but not carrying blood, carrying something older. "This is the cost," whispered Mara's voice. He staggered to his feet, whirling around. No one, just wind, but it wasn't memory. It was her, still inside him, somewhere, waiting. He walked for days, east, then south, avoiding roads, sleeping beneath trees, eating nothing. The hunger had vanished, replaced by something else, a gnawing ache in his bones. Not pain, purpose. In a dream, he saw the mouth. Not the god, just the mouth. Endless, split from horizon to horizon, lined with tongues and coral teeth. It spoke in a voice that flayed the meaning from language. Isaac screamed, but his scream echoed back with Mara's voice. "You didn't kill me, Isaac. You invited me in." He woke with blood on his hands. Not his own. A village lay smoldering behind him, one he hadn't remembered entering. No oblivious, just salt piles, symbols carved into walls in his handwriting. He vomited until it turned to bile. Then he kept walking. By the fourth day, he reached a cliff overlooking the eastern sea. The wind howled. The waves below were still. And there, on the edge, stood a man in a long black coat, his back turned, head bowed. He didn't move, didn't speak. Isaac approached slowly. "Who are you?" he called. The man turned. His face was smooth, eyeless, mouthless, just skin stretched tight. And still, somehow he smiled. Behind him, others emerged from a mist. Dozens, then hundreds, all marked with the same glyphs as Isaac. All bowing, all whispering the same phrase. "The bride has crowned the king." Isaac backed away. No, I'm not. You were chosen the moment you betrayed her." Mara's voice echoed within him. "You didn't stop the god. You became its throne." He fled, ran through brush, marsh, stone. He could hear them behind him, chanting, not chasing, escorting. Isaac stumbled into a ruin, an old tower wrapped in vines and barnacle growth. Inside, the walls were lined with skin, stitched parchment bearing prophecies written in bile. They told his story, page after page. The hunter, the wound, the betrayal, the vessel, the mouth reborn. He screamed and tore the pages down. but the ink bled through his hands, and when he looked in the shattered mirror near the altar, he didn't see himself. He saw her, Mara's face, crying, mouthing one word, run, but there was nowhere to run. His body was no longer his. The glyphs pulsed. The voices returned. He saw cultists in his dreams, ripping out their own eyes to see him more clearly. He saw the god's shadow stretching over a drowned world. And always, he felt Mara, still inside him. Not angry, not vengeful, but sad, so unbearably sad. On the seventh night, he returned to the coast, to Durnmouth. It was quiet now, empty. No voices, no cultists, no bodies, just the lighthouse, still burning. He climbed it one final time. At the top, he stood beneath the storm-swallowed sky and looked down at the Black Sea. He opened the book. Its pages turned on their own, and stopped at the last one, a drawing. A figure with a stitched mouth and a crown of eyes, sitting on a throne of ribs. The king below. Isaac dropped the book. His hands trembled. Salt crusted his skin. The wind whispered her name over and over. Mara, Mara, Mara. He stepped to the edge. I'm sorry, he whispered. I was afraid. No answer, just thunder. And then, for the first time, her hand in his. Warm, real. She stood beside him, half seen, half there. Not a ghost, not a god, something else. You were never the throne, she said softly. He turned. Her face was calm. You're the lock. He fell to his knees. The lighthouse shook. The sea boiled. From the horizon, shapes rose. Massive, robed in flesh and tide, bearing the eyes of the drowned. The final cult had come. Not to worship, but to unseal. Isaac looked at Mara. What do I do? She smiled, and placed a key of bone in his hand. One last chance. One last choice. Chapter 10. The wind tore through the lighthouse like a blade. Rain sliced his skin. Isaac stood trembling on the edge of the world. The key of bone pressed cold in his palm. Mara's ghost beside him, more solid than ever. Her eyes were black stars. Her smile both sorrow and promise. Behind them, the cultists gathered at the foot of the cliff. Massive shapes cloaked in seaweed and salt. Eyes glowing like drowned lanterns. The air pulsed with the breathing of the mouth. The god beneath the waves awake. Hungry, Isaac felt it inside him, the lock tightening. The god tried to push through, to shatter the prison he'd built, to make him collapse, to make him break. But he would not. Mara reached out. Her fingers brushed his face. Isaac, she said softly, you don't have to die. He shook his head. We both die if I fail. She stepped closer. No, we live. Together. The god, the vessel, the lock. We rewrite this world. Her skin began to shimmer, veins glowing with dark water. She was becoming the god's bride, the final mask, the sleeper's queen. Isaac clenched the key. Then I choose the lock. She frowned. Before she could speak, he stepped back and drove the bone shard through his chest. A white-hot pain. The glyphs flared and burned. Mara screamed, a sound both human and abyssal. The lighthouse trembled. The cultists howled. The storm god roared from beneath the sea. Isaac fell to his knees. The key pulsed with light. The god surged. Then, the world stopped. The sea stilled. The storm died. Mara knelt beside him, her hand on his chest, her voice a whisper. You locked it in. He smiled weakly. Not me. She looked down. The wound was closing. The glyphs faded into scars. Us, he said. The cultists vanished into mist. The lighthouse stood silent. The god slept once more. Isaac closed his eyes, and in the darkness, he heard her voice. Thank you. Outside, the rain began to fall gently. A new dawn, bleak but free.